Day 3 of Drawing Who Monsters. Today's monster, the Zygons. The Zygons are an extraterrestrial race in the long-running British science fiction television program Doctor Who. The Zygons have shape-shifting abilities, allowing them to replicate the appearance of another being. Limited by the small size of their force, they rely on shape-shifting and their organic spacecraft to conceal their numbers and seize power on Earth. The Zygons were conceived by writer Robert Banks Stewart. 10th and 14th Doctor actor David Tennant has stated that they are his favorite villains in the series. A new species of parasitic wasp, first described in 2019, was named Choeirus zygon in reference to the Zygons. The Zygons first appeared in the 1975 serial Terror of the Zygons, in which they planned to conquer Earth following the destruction of the Zygon homeworld. One of their spacecraft, commanded by Warlord Broden, crash-landed into Loch Ness in antiquity. The Zygons used a scaracin, a creature that provides milk for their sustenance and which had become known as the Loch Ness Monster by humans, to attack an energy conference in London. The plan was foiled and Broden and his crew were killed, due to the intervention of the Fourth Doctor and the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, UNIT. The scaracin retreated into the depths of Loch Ness. The Zygons are briefly mentioned, but not seen, in the 11th Doctor episode, The Pandorica Opens, 2010, as one of the many races in an alliance against the Doctor. In the 2012 episode, The Power of Three, a Zygon ship is hidden beneath the Savoy Hotel where the Doctor takes Amy Pond and Rory Williams on their wedding anniversary. All the Zygons are disguised as hotel staff. The Zygons returned in 2013 in The Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary episode of the program. The episode hints the stellar explosion, said to have destroyed their homeworld in the 1975 serial, was an effect of the Time War. A squad places themselves in suspended animation in Elizabethan England, planning to awaken in 2013 to infiltrate the Tower of London's Black Archive disguised as UNIT members. The scheme is foiled by the intervention of the 10th Doctor, the 11th Doctor and the War Doctor. When UNIT is overrun by Zygon doppelgangers, Kate Lethbridge Stewart threatens to detonate a nuclear device to prevent Zygon access to UNIT's storehouse of alien technology. The Doctors successfully negotiate a truce between the two species. The ramifications of this treaty are explored in the 9th series two-parter The Zygon Invasion, / The Zygon Inversion, 2015. Zygons were allowed to rehome on Earth on the condition that they disguised themselves as people and lived incognito. In the intervening time, they developed the ability to retain a person's likeness after the death of the original and shape-shift into someone based on a telepathic scan of a nearby being. Although older generations of Zygons were committed to integration with human communities, the younger generations resented being forced to live as humans and quickly radicalized. The Radicals and UNIT once again enter stalemate at the Tower of London, both poised to destroy one another, but the 12th Doctor makes an impassioned plea and convinces the radical Zygon leader to understand the lasting peace which the treaty was written to preserve. Terror of the Zygons was novelized by Target in 1976, written by Terrance Dicks, under the title Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster. The book further expounded on the concept of the Zygon sting, poisonous barbs protruding from their hands, which explains why, in the television episode, the Zygons were able to inflict pain on other beings with a mere touch. The original shooting script for the episode also included references to the sting, but the on-screen portrayal of the concept failed to make it clear to the audience. The comic story, Skywatch 7, written by Alan Mackenzie, under the pseudonym Maxwell Stockbridge, and illustrated by Mick Austin, features a UNIT team encountering a single Zygon at a remote base. It was first published, in 2 parts, in Doctor Who Monthly No. 58 and the Doctor Who Winter Special 1981. The 8th Doctor encountered the Zygons in the spin-off novel The Body Snatchers by Mark Morris, which also named the now-destroyed Zygon homeworld as Ziggur. The novel also revealed that Zygor had been destroyed as a result of an attack by an arachnid alien race from Tau Ceti, the Zeranti. The Doctor, his companion Sam Jones, and the Fourth Doctor's old acquaintance Professor Lightfoot are able to stop the Zygons by poisoning the milk supply, although the Doctor had intended to merely drug them and miscalculated the dose, the Doctor taking the survivors to another planet. The Zygons appear in the new series Adventures novel Sting of the Zygons by Stephen Cole, featuring the 10th Doctor and Martha Jones, which is set in the Lake District in 1909. A plan to set up a royal funeral where the Zygons could replace the rulers of various nations is thwarted through the Doctor's intervention, as well as a Zygon civil war when one of their two Scarrisons is killed. The Zygons have been featured in 3 audio plays produced by BBV, Homeland by Paul Deering, Absolution, not to be confused with the Big Finish play Absolution, by Paul Ebbs and The Barnacled Baby by Anthony Keach. They made their Big Finish debut in the 8th Doctor audio adventure The Zygon Who Fell to Earth by Paul Magers and Returned in Death in Blackpool by Alan Barnes. The Zygons also feature in Zygon Hunt by Nicholas Briggs, facing the 4th Doctor and Leela. The Zygons were featured in the 2nd Doctor Who Weetabix promotional set and were card number 9 in the Typhoon T card set. Harlequin Miniatures produced 2 28mm figures, and Fine Art Castings produced 2 Zygon figurines, sized 80mm and 40mm. In October 2016, recent on-screen versions have now been released in 28mm, by Warlord Games. In 2008, a Zygon figure was released by Character Options in the first wave of their classic Doctor Who toy line. On June 26, 2014, a Zygon as featured in The Day of the Doctor was released as part of the ongoing Doctor Who figurine collection from Eaglemoss. The Zygon will be the 23rd in the regular line of releases. Zygon is a spin-off drama production from BBV, featuring the Zygons. Early drafts were written by Lance Parkin and later ones by Jonathan Blum, although both authors removed their names from the final version, which was heavily rewritten again. It was eventually released in 2008 as Zygon, When Being You Just Isn't Enough, with an 18 certificate due to scenes of an adult nature, after a post-production period of about 5 years. The Zygons were a race of metamorphic humanoids. They originated from the planet Zygor, but often tried to migrate away from it. The Body Snatchers. Zygons were solidly built humanoids with large, cone-shaped heads. Their heads, arms and torsos were covered in suckers, and they had deeply inset faces. Zygons had maroon blood and spoke in a gurgling whisper. They were stronger than humans, terror of the Zygons, and longer-lived, with an average lifespan of 700 to 1,000 years old. The Body Snatchers, they also had an earthy, iron odor and the ability to sting people with venomous barbs on their palms. These stings could stun, maim or kill. They left large welts on the affected area. Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster, Sting of the Zygons. They also had the ability to transform members of other species into Zygons, with the side effect of creating a telepathic link between the new Zygon and the one that induced the change. After she was converted into such a human-Zygon hybrid, Homevid, Zygon, When Being You Just Isn't Enough, Lore Anderson began to emit highly unusual pheromones which allowed Stacey Facade to trace her across London with ease after Lore tried to get away from Stacey. Homevid, Lauren Anderson. They had venom sacs located in their tongues. The Day of the Doctor. Young Zygons were called hatchlings and were slimy and pale with shorter limbs. Hatchlings were mute, but much faster than adults. Sting of the Zygons. Zygons had a deeply ingrained fear of fire. Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster, they could be easily hypnotized by a clock's swinging pendulum. Game, Destiny of the Doctors. Zygons were hermaphrodites. At the start of their lives, they had an almost white color and were more feminine and graceful, without suckers. They became orange-colored, were covered in suckers and became more stocky and masculine in appearance after being sterilized. The greatest rank a Zygon could attain was warrior engineer. To become a warrior engineer, a Zygon must undergo sterilization, a process which makes them more aggressive and single-minded. The body snatchers. Zygons were able to produce electricity bolts from their hands that could stun humans or other Zygons or disintegrate them into piles of hair and skin. The Zygon invasion, it seemed unable to have any effect on Time Lords. However, when used on the 12th Doctor, he was slightly phased, but otherwise unharmed. The Zygon inversion. Zygon technology was partly biological, with an organic look. This was exemplified by the Scaracin, a large, cybernetically enhanced creature from their homeworld. Zygons were also known to depend upon the lactic fluid of the Scaracin for their survival. TV, terror of the Zygons, their use of organic ships was well known. Alien bodies. One of the most important Zygon achievements was their use of body prints. Usually, the Zygons would capture a specimen, such as a human, and put them in a special receptacle. A Zygon could then take the form of this specimen, mimicking both voice and appearance. This body print needed to be renewed every 2 hours, while the prisoners were kept alive but unconscious. TV, terror of the Zygons, however, in some circumstances they were able to adopt the shape of the specimen without keeping them in a receptacle, although they still needed the specimen alive. TV, the day of the Doctor, at some point they gained the ability to keep the shape of a deceased specimen, as long as they did not need any more information from them. They also gained the ability to forge a telepathic link with another being and take the form of someone from their memory. TV, the Zygon invasion. Though they generally took the forms of humanoids, they could also mimic creatures of diverse sizes and shapes, such as dogs, cattle, and horses. Sting of the Zygons, TV, the day of the Doctor, a Zygon who was unable to transform was known as a Zynog. Audio, death in Blackpool, if a Zygon was killed while disguised, it would remain in that form as a corpse. Homevid, Zygon, when being you just isn't enough. To control the Scaracin, the Zygons used trilanic activators. Zygons frequently used molecular dispersal to get rid of corpses. Their ships tracked the life signs of the Zygons and would bring the corpse back to the ship if a Zygon was killed. TV, terror of the Zygons, pros, sting of the Zygons, they also made use of a type of nerve gas to render humans unconscious. TV, terror of the Zygons, another Zygon discovery was called the amber sleep, which was a type of suspended animation. Sting of the Zygons. Zygons were divided into clans, each with a different culture. Audio, the Zygon who fell to earth, Zygon warlords fought in elaborate shape-shifting duels using the bodies of other creatures held captive. Comic, rest and recreation, a Zygon High Command organized Operation Double on Earth with the Unified Intelligence Task Force before being violently overthrown and replaced by a faction of radical Zygons called Truth or Consequences which sought to usurp humanity. TV, the Zygon invasion, Zygon queens ruled over individual planets. Lords and masters. Zygons measured distance in remars. TV, terror of the Zygons, sting of the Zygons. Zygons were rather fond of board games and worshipped a deity called Katu. The body snatchers. According to one account, the Zygons were originally at war with the Zeranti. During this war, both the Zygon homeworld, Zygor, and the Zeranti home planets were destroyed. The body snatchers, another account given by the Zygon Broden in the 20th century said his world was destroyed in a recent catastrophe. Terror of the Zygons, another account given by Elizabeth I in 1562 states that their planet burnt in the first days of the last Great Time War. The day of the Doctor, most accounts indeed agreed the planet was lost to the Time War. The Day of the Doctor, the Day of the Doctor, the Honiverse. Refugees created a refugee fleet, and the ship on Earth was contacted. TV, Terror of the Zygons. Stay tuned for the next monster, the Sontarans.